Have you ever felt that gnawing doubt, that quiet whisper that asks, do they really love me, or am I just filling a space in their life? Maybe you've noticed how someone's words of affection don't line up with their actions. The "I love you" that arrives cold, the promises that sound warm but are never followed through. It leaves you holding something fragile, like a cracked mirror in your hands. You tilt it toward the light, hoping to see a whole reflection, but all you get are broken fragments. The pieces show something, yes, but never the full truth. And deep down, you wonder, am I really seeing love, or just the image someone wants me to see? This is not a small wound. It's one that digs deep, settling in the chest like a weight. Maybe you've lain awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking yourself, is this love, or am I being used? Am I valued, or just tolerated? Am I chosen, or simply convenient? Most of us, at some point, have walked through that shadowy place. Friendships that take more than they give. Romantic relationships where affection turns into absence at the very moment you need closeness. Even in work, where smiles and handshakes hide competition and betrayal. Each time it happens, trust cracks just a little more, and your heart begins to doubt not only others, but yourself. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist whose work still shapes how we understand the soul, believed that when it comes to love, masks can be worn, but truth eventually leaks through. He spoke of the persona, the mask we present to the world, carefully shaped to fit what's expected of us. In love, that mask can be polished, charming, persuasive. But Jung noticed something crucial. No mask can cover the raw energy of the psyche forever. Eventually, what lies beneath will show, if only you know where to look. Think of how you walk into a room full of strangers. You adjust your posture, you smile, you say what feels safe. That is your mask, necessary, even useful. But it is not the whole you. Now imagine someone doing the same in love. They show you sweetness, but hide their wounds. They speak of devotion, but conceal their fears. For a time it works, but slowly, inevitably the cracks form. And through those cracks, the real energy slips out. That is why so many people are fooled, because they cling to the mask, mistaking it for the truth. And here's where Jung offers something powerful. He believed that love reveals itself in two behaviors that cannot be fake for long. They are not flowery words or dramatic gestures. They are quiet, consistent signals that shine through no matter how strong the mask. These two behaviors are like fingerprints. Unmistakable, unique, impossible to forge. Once you recognize them, you'll never confuse projection with love again. So let me ask you this. When a mask cracks, what do you see? Do you see tenderness, patience, a desire to understand you? Or do you see control, indifference, perhaps even manipulation hiding in the shadows? The mask is temporary, but the energy beneath it always speaks. And that is the promise of today's journey. We're going to uncover the two behaviors Jung said reveal the truth of love. They are not theories locked away in psychology books. They are signs you can observe in daily life, in conversations, in silence, in the way someone responds when nothing is expected of them. They are simple, but they change everything. But before we reveal them, there is something we need to understand first. Why is it so easy for us to deceive ourselves? Why do we accept half-truths, cling to cracked mirrors, and hold on to masks, even when we know deep down they don't reflect reality? Why do we ignore what actions are screaming, choosing instead to listen only to the soothing words? That's the question we need to face before anything else. Because unless we understand why we fall for illusions, we'll never be able to see love clearly when it's right in front of us. And once you see the answer, you will never unsee it again. Carl Jung once said that each of us wears a mask, a persona, crafted carefully to survive in a world. It is the smile you put on when you're breaking inside, the politeness you use when you'd rather scream, the way you dress your words so they won't offend, so you'll be accepted, admired, or at least tolerated. The persona is not a lie. It's a tool, a necessity. But Jung also warned that when it comes to love, the mask is only half the story. Imagine this through a story. A woman once believed she had found the man of her dreams. He was charming, attentive, intelligent, and seemed to say all the right things. He brought flowers, opened doors, asked about her day. Everything about him appeared flawless. So flawless it almost glittered. For a time, She felt safe, convinced she had finally met the kind of love she'd prayed for. But as days turned into months, she noticed something unsettling. He never shared anything truly vulnerable. He never admitted fear, never revealed weakness, never let her see the cracks in his armor. His laughter was perfect, his answers polished, his image intact. And while at first it seemed admirable, eventually it began to feel cold, as though she was in love with a statue instead of a man. And so the question arose, if someone never shows their vulnerability, is it truly love or just performance? Is it affection or just an act rehearsed so carefully that it leaves no room for reality? Jung believed that when love only allows a persona to be seen, it is incomplete, shallow, even deceptive, because love without shadow is not love at all. It is theater. Here lies the heart of Jung's teaching. True love only exists when the shadow is allowed to surface, not just the polished self, not only the bright and beautiful qualities, but also the hidden doubts, the raw insecurities, the ordinary humanity. Real love is not about loving someone's mask. It is about loving the person behind it, including the parts that tremble, the parts that break. Think of it like a mirror. A perfect mask reflects only one side of the self, smooth and shining, while the other half remains buried in the dark. At first, it may look beautiful, but over time, the absence of depth makes it unbearable. Because intimacy is not built on performance. It is born in the moment when the mask slips, when the shadow shows, and love chooses to stay anyway. But here's the danger. What happens when shadow is hidden for too long? What happens when someone becomes so invested in their persona that they never let the other see who they truly are? At first, it feels safe. Later, it becomes suffocating. And eventually, it breaks everything. That's the question we need to face next. Because when the shadow is locked away, love doesn't disappear. It mutates. And the consequences may be far more painful than we imagine. In everyday life, this hidden mechanism reveals itself not in grand betrayals, but in small, almost invisible cracks. It's a partner who says, "I love you," but never truly listens when you speak. It's a friend who promises, "I'll always be there for you," but disappears the moment your life gets complicated. It's the colleague who praises you in front of others, but secretly undermines your efforts when no one is watching. These are not accidents. They are symptoms of living from the mask, when words were the costume of love, but actions betray a different truth. Picture this scene. A couple sitting together at dinner, in public. The man is affectionate, holding her hand, complimenting her in front of friends, making sure everyone sees how devoted he seems to be. But later, in the quiet of their home, his warmth turns cold. The television speaks louder than his words. His phone receives more attention than her feelings. And when she tries to share her worries, he changes the subject. In public, he plays the role of the perfect partner. In private, the silence tells another story. Jung once wrote, "The mask we offer the world is the greatest obstacle to true love." When the persona dominates, love becomes performance. It's not that people never mean what they say. It's that their words are filtered to the mask they believe they must wear. The mask protects their image, but it keeps their soul hidden. And when the soul stays hidden, love never fully breathes. This is the danger of not recognizing the mechanism. You can spend years caught in the illusion, convinced you are cherished because the performance looks convincing. You replay the sweet words in your mind. You cling to the grand gestures. You excuse the silences and the absences because you want to believe. And slowly, without even realizing it, you trade your truth for a mask someone else is wearing. You stop asking the deeper questions. Do they truly see me? Do they allow me to see them? Or am I only in love with the character they created? The loop is vicious. You give more, hoping one day the mask will come off. You forgive the distance, explain it away as stress, fatigue, or distraction. You silence your own instincts because you fear losing the little affection you do receive. And the longer you stay in this loop, the harder it becomes to tell the difference between illusion and reality. But what happens to someone who lives for years inside the cycle of illusions? What happens when you build your future on a mask that was never meant to last? That is where the real danger lies, and where we must turn our eyes next. When this pattern never changes, the cost is devastating. On the surface, the relationship may look alive. pictures on social media, smiles at dinner parties, words exchanged that sound affectionate enough. But inside, the heart feels like it is slowly starving. You give everything of yourself, your time, your patience, your love, yet you are never truly seen. It is as if your soul is knocking at a door that never opens, and the longer you wait, the heavier the silence becomes. The truth is harsh. Living like this feels like trying to water a seed planted in stone. You bring the water every day, pouring hope, care, and effort into it. You whisper encouragements to it, believing one day it will sprout. But no matter how much you give, nothing grows. The stone doesn't change. The soil never softens. And you begin to wonder the problem is with your love, your effort, or your worth. When in reality, the problem is that you're trying to nurture life where it cannot take root. This is how the soul slowly erodes. Isolation creeps in. Not the kind where you're alone in a room, but the kind where you feel utterly unseen while sitting beside someone. Your identity starts to blur, as though your reflection in the mirror has been rubbed away. You smile on cue, you play the role expected of you, but inside there's only an echoing emptiness, a silence that feels endless, a void where connection was meant to live. And here's the dangerous part. When love becomes illusion, the emptiness can convince you that this is all you deserve. You lower your expectations. You stop asking for authenticity. You accept the stone as if it were soil. And without noticing, you begin to abandon yourself in the process. But Jung discovered something remarkable about this abyss. He believed that when we face the emptiness, when we look into the silence without running away, what feels like an ending is actually an invitation. The abyss is not just a hole. It is a threshold. It asks you to wake up, to see beyond the mask, to step out of the illusion. What feels like the collapse of love is often the first chance to find real love, not in another's mask, but in your own wholeness. And this is where the turn begins. Because there is a way to see the truth clearly. There is a path to break free from the endless cycle of illusions. And it doesn't begin with something complicated or unreachable. Jung believed it starts with just two simple behaviors, two signals of love that never lie. Jung believed that the way out of illusion is not through suspicion or endless analysis, but through conscious observation. Instead of asking, "Do they love me?" he invites us to notice how love shows itself in practice. For him, real love was never about grand declarations or perfect personas. It was revealed through two quiet but undeniable behaviors. The first is genuine listening. Not the kind of listening where someone waits for their turn to speak, but the kind where silence is honored. It is being able to share your fears, your flaws, your messy truths, and not feel rushed or dismissed. Genuine listening holds space for your humanity. It doesn't try to fix you, doesn't compete with your pain, doesn't reduce your story. It's the experience of being fully received. Even when your words falter, you know it when you feel it, because suddenly you breathe easier. You don't have to perform. You don't have to polish your sentences. You are simply allowed to be. The second behavior is constant presence. Not just presence at the celebrations, but presence in the shadows. It is easy to show up with a smile when life is light, when laughter fills a room and success is being toasted. But true love proves itself in the valley, when you stumble, when tears come, when the weight of life presses down. Jung knew that the mask can imitate affection in good times, but only real connection remains steady when storms arrive. True love doesn't vanish when the lights go out. It sits with you in the dark. These two behaviors, listening and presence, become the compass, the map of discernment, and you don't need complex psychology to recognize them. Start simple. Notice the times someone listens without interrupting, without shifting the conversation back to themselves. Notice whether they remain near when your life feels heavy, not only when it shines. And to deepen your awareness, write it down. Keep a small journal, noting the moments when you truly feel seen and supported. Over time, the pattern emerges. You'll begin to see who is loving you and who is only playing a role. This is not about judgment or blame. It's about clarity. When you learn to observe love at this level, illusions lose their grip, masks slip faster, and you begin to trust not just what people say, but the truth of what they do. But even here, Jung would caution us, because there is a subtle danger. Sometimes, in our hunger for love, We mistake dependency for presence. We confuse someone clinging to us out of fear with someone standing by us out of love. And that confusion can lead us into new illusions, new chains. So, how do we protect ourselves from that? How do we avoid turning the map into another trap? That's where we must go next. Even with the clarity that Jung offers, the two behaviors that reveal real love, there are traps along the way. And these traps are subtle, dangerous, because they often dress themselves as wisdom. If you're not careful, you can walk straight into them, believing you're protecting yourself, when in truth you are only building new prisons. The first trap is ego inflation. Once you begin to see through masks, there's a temptation to believe you're the only one who truly understands. Pride creeps in, whispering, "I see the truth, others are blind." But love is not about superiority. When discernment turns into arrogance, you close yourself off, and your clarity becomes another mask, this time of pride. Jung would remind us that the shadow doesn't vanish when ignored, and ego is one of its clever disguises. The second trap is isolation. After being wounded, it feels safer to withdraw, to step back from people altogether. You tell yourself, if I don't let anyone close, I won't be hurt again. But this protective wall, built from pain, eventually becomes a cage. The very thing you fear, loneliness, becomes your daily companion. Love cannot reach someone who has locked every door. Protecting your heart is wise, but burying it in silence is fatal. The third trap is the savior complex. Once you recognize someone's mask, you may feel the urge to heal them, to love them hard enough that their wounds disappear. It comes from a place of compassion, but often ends in self-destruction. You give and give, hoping your devotion will be enough, but the other person may not even be willing to take off their mask. Jung warned that projecting your own desire for healing onto others keeps you blind to your own needs. Love cannot be forced. You cannot rescue someone at the cost of drowning yourself. Different thinkers have wrestled with this tension. Nietzsche once wrote that love is a form of will to power, the desire to possess and to shape another. Meister Eckhart, the Christian mystic, reminded us instead that true love is surrender, an offering without chains, without possession. And between these two extremes, Jung pointed a balance. Love is not domination, nor is it blind sacrifice. It is a meeting of two souls, both shadow and light, both flawed and whole, choosing to see and be seen. And here lies the turning point. When you navigate past these traps, when you refuse the pride of ego, the coldness of isolation, and exhaustion of trying to be a savior, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Love no longer feels like doubt, like a cracked mirror, like endless guessing. It begins to reveal itself, pure and unmistakable. And that revelation is where our journey is about to take us. And here we arrive at the moment of rebirth, the point where everything that felt confusing and heavy begins to make sense. You realize now that true love has never been about poetic words or perfect gestures. It isn't measured in promises shouted from rooftops or flawless personas, crafted with care. Real love is revealed in the quiet, consistent acts that cannot be faked, in the ability to listen deeply, to hold silence without fear, to remain present not only in the sunlight but also in the storm. You begin to see that the mask, as beautiful as it may look, was never the proof of love. What matters is the courage to let the shadows show, the tears, the fears, the trembling imperfections. Love becomes real not when everything looks perfect, but when both the light and the shadow are welcomed, when two souls meet without performance, without disguise. Imagine the cracked mirror you've been holding throughout this journey. For so long, those fractures seem like evidence of failure, of betrayal, of illusions that refuse to hold. But now, something miraculous happens. The mirror doesn't return to flawless glass. Instead, the broken pieces are gathered and reshaped into a stained glass window. The cracks are no longer wounds. They are paths for the light to shine through. And suddenly, what once reflected only brokenness now becomes a masterpiece of color and truth. This is the transformation Jung pointed toward. Individuation is not perfection. It is integration. It is learning to love without needing masks, to embrace without demanding control, to see and be seen in the fullness of both beauty and shadow. And in that space, trust is reborn. So carry this truth with you. Loving is listening and staying, even when the shadow appears. If this video spoke to you, take a moment to write in the comments, "I choose to be truly seen." Your words may be the mirror someone else needs to gather their own pieces. And if you want to go even deeper, I prepared another video that shows you how to integrate your shadow without fear. Because your wholeness is not something to hide, but something to live.